A few days ago, Trump said start over in a speech. We interpreted this as Silbuston, starting from scratch. However, we need to focus on what this phrase was referring to, what it implied, or who it was directed at. As we delve into this issue, we will embark on a journey spanning from the European Union to China, from the United States to the depths of history. Perhaps we can navigate those deep waters together. First, it's worth remembering this: when we talk about the United States, to better understand today, we need to grasp the great struggles of the past. The American Civil War, the great conflict between the North and the South, was not merely a fight against slavery. Behind that war, we must also see the power struggles of different international forces supporting the North and the South. What happened during that time emerges as a legacy of a struggle that continues even today. Moreover, this mindset is not limited to America alone. These strategic calculations, which view the entire world as a battlefield, affect us all. But who constitutes this mindset? We'll discuss that more clearly in a moment. Undoubtedly, the most significant event of the period was the American Civil War, which took place between 1861 and 1865. This war between the anti-slavery North and the pro-slavery South claimed the lives of nearly 500,000 people. Those supporting the North included powers like France, while the structures backing the South were linked to Great Britain, specifically the influential financial systems centered around what is known today as the City of London. Thus, this war was not solely an internal matter for America but also part of a global struggle among the dominant forces of that time. However, history doesn't stop there. We must also examine the American Revolutionary War. Fought between 1775 and 1783 against Great Britain, this war laid the foundation for America's fight for independence. During this process, America was not alone. It had important allies such as France, Spain, and the Netherlands. On its side, Great Britain brought forces from Germany to the fight. As a result of the American Revolutionary War, a new republic was established, and Masonic structures gained influence. To understand the structure implied by Trump with his start over remark today, we must revisit these historical processes. The great rivalry between the United States and Great Britain has its roots in these wars. Following the struggles for freedom and independence, Britain gained significant advantages in global dominance during World War I. However, during World War II, America secretly supported Germany and played a role that cornered Britain in global balances. But are we merely talking about history here? Or is there still an ongoing game today? These are the questions we will seek to answer. Now, let's transition to China. Does the United States truly intend to carry out an operation against China? Or is the real target of this operation the structures connected to the City of London, integrated into China's financial system? It becomes evident that the ultimate target is actually England, but by England, we are not referring to its people. Instead, we are talking about the City of London, an independent municipal area located in the heart of London. This structure, as a financial center where all the money flows and the world's debts are collected, influences the global economy. Unless this region is dismantled, the Masonic structure in America will continue to shape the course of the world. This is where China comes into play. We need to focus on Hong Kong, one of China's most critical points. Hong Kong is not merely a city, it is a global financial hub and a symbol of great struggles in the past. During the First Opium War in 1842, the Qing dynasty ceded Hong Kong to Great Britain in exchange for peace. This marked the beginning of Britain transforming Hong Kong into a colony. Later, with the addition of the Kowloon Peninsula during the Second Opium War between 1856 and 1860, the modern shape of Hong Kong began to take form. However, this story reached a major turning point in 1997. That year, we saw Britain hand Hong Kong back to China. With the expiration of the 99-year agreement, Hong Kong returned to Chinese governance under the principle of one country, two systems. This system allows Hong Kong to operate under a separate administrative and economic framework. However, this does not reduce Hong Kong's influence on global finance and politics. On the contrary, it enhances it. The symbols on Hong Kong's flag also represent this historical and economic power. The 5 stars on the flag symbolize strong financial connections of the past and the global influence shaped by Mayer Rothschild sending his 5 sons to 5 major cities in Europe. The Rothschild family's role in this structure stands out as an element deeply impacting Europe's economic and political framework. This quintet has carried the balances formed by Masonic minds up to the present day. The conflict between America's Masonic system and these financial structures vividly shows us the power struggles on the global stage. The Hong Kong dollar and its exchange rate with the US dollar, ranging between 7 to 8 Hong Kong dollars, is not merely a currency, it is a symbol for understanding Hong Kong's place in the global financial system and its historical ties. We are talking about an image that shows Hong Kong belonging to the City of London. In this image, the 5 arrows represent the global financial connections shaped by the Rothschild family sending their children to 5 major cities in Europe. This quintet emerges as a significant part of world dominance. Hong Kong has become a center where the influence of the City of London expanded from England to Asia. We will soon see this influence grow even further. Why is this important? Because even the establishment of China was a product of a British-American operation. During Mao's Long March, the influence of England in the City of London was felt. America's support for the establishment of the People's Republic of China was part of these global power games. Today, we see that America is not waging war against China but is actually conducting a war against England. This struggle, in a historical context, has been shaped by turning points such as the independence movement of 1776, the Civil War, and the First and Second World Wars. Hong Kong has become a symbol of the power struggle between England and China in this historical process. America is trying to narrow England and China and form a ring around them. The reason behind Trump's start-over remark lies in the expiration of the Atlantic Charter Agreement made with Roosevelt on August 14, 1941, and the beginning of a new era. In this new era, we can foresee an increase in actions against England and chaos starting in regions dominated by England. We also see the reflections of this chaos in Turkey. America's policies, especially those implemented by Trump, include steps aimed at turning import and export balances in its favor. Measures taken to ensure that industry and production are carried out under America's own brands may herald a new era in the global economy. However, whether these policies will succeed remains to be seen over time. When it comes to the European Union, recent statements by America have raised the claim that the European Union is a big lie. The origins of the European Union trace back to the Paris Agreement signed on April 18, 1951, between Belgium, Germany, France, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, and Italy. This agreement led to the establishment of the European Coal and Steel Community. The idea of the European Union gained strength with the Maastricht Treaty in 1991 and was officially established on November 1, 1993. However, the motivations behind this idea might have served America's interests. We need to understand the structure and historical context of the European Union comprehensively. The European Union is not a structure that directly serves the interests of the United States. The seeds of this idea were sown by Jean Monnet, a French economist and financier who lived between 1888 and 1979. Monnet's idea of the European Union took shape with the Schuman Declaration. But who was behind this idea? Why would a Frenchman propose such a structure? The answers to these questions are crucial for understanding the historical and political context of the European Union. One of the key figures behind this structure was Baron Robert Rothschild. Living between 1911 and 1998, Rothschild was a Belgian diplomat and one of the individuals who laid the foundations of the European Union. He drafted the Rome Agreement in 1957 and helped establish the European Economic Community in 1958. Rothschild, along with Jean Monnet, shaped the idea of the European Union to create a second pole against the United States. However, this project was undermined by events like the conquest of Afghanistan and thwarted by the Americans. Today, with Croatia's accession to the European Union, the number of member states has reached 28. However, the United Kingdom's membership in the European Union conflicted with the interests of German Freemasonry and the German political structure. This situation resulted in the Brexit operation. Through a joint operation by Americans and Germans, England was pushed out of Europe. Thus, the City of London lost its dominance in Europe and was confined to the island of Great Britain. This represents a continuing dimension of the England-America conflict. The defeat of Napoleon and the Vatican's collaboration with the Rothschild family led France to align with England. Looking at Macron today, we could say he is the modern reflection of Jean Monnet. Macron acts like the accountant of the City of London. The movement that began in the United States aims to completely sideline France. The efforts by Russia and America to eliminate French influence in Africa, starting with the 1943 Tehran Agreement, are part of this process. In North Africa, the influence of French culture and language is gradually being eroded by American influence. The sidelining of France under the influence of the City of London continues with events like Trump imposing quotas on French goods. When we delve into the quotas on China, we will deepen these analyses further. We have reached another important dimension of our topic. The second part of this conflict can be explained through the dynamics involving France and England. The operation in Ukraine was, in fact, a struggle staged through collaboration between Russia and the United States. However, two of the countries that most strongly opposed this operation were England and France. While France provided military aid to Ukraine, England extended various support, ranging from drones to financing and even promises of strategic partnerships. These efforts clearly reveal how the Anglo-American rivalry has shifted to the field of Ukraine. Many events occurring in Turkey today can also be seen as reflections of this conflict on another stage. In this context, the importance of the Black Sea resurfaces. During negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, an agreement was signed to ensure the safety of navigation in the Black Sea. These meetings, mediated by the United States, are considered a critical turning point for the future of regional trade and energy transportation. The Black Sea is a sensitive region, both in terms of allowing trade vessels to move freely and limiting the use of military power. As part of the agreement, it was planned to prevent military tools from being used on civilian ships. These developments signal that the Black Sea is becoming a secure corridor for international trade and energy transportation. By the way, this week's cover of Time magazine, titled Endgame, has drawn attention. In discussions about Ukraine, comments suggesting that Zelensky is a caricature leader are coming to the forefront. Seen as a figure chosen by the British, much like Macron, Zelensky appears likely to either be removed from office or sidelined in some other way. Since the early days of Russia's operation in Ukraine, we have been discussing these possibilities, and now we can say that these predictions are on the verge of coming true. Now, let's take a look at China. Recently, China has called for investments from international companies. The Chinese government promises to offer more reasonable taxes and create a supportive environment for companies to grow in order to encourage these investments. However, when evaluating China's current situation, we must not forget an important fact: China still stands out as a production hub. A large part of its technological infrastructure comes from abroad, and China assembles these technologies into various products, such as televisions, phones, cars, or electronic devices. However, China still cannot produce the core components of technology. The United States, on the other hand, is increasingly establishing a blockade around China. This strategic move, stretching from the Sea of Japan to the South China Sea in the Pacific region, aims to squeeze China's logistics lines by sea. Many materials, such as energy resources from Australia and food products from America, currently reach China via sea routes. So, what happens if this sea route is cut off in a potential conflict? This is a critical question we need to consider. In the tensions in the Pacific, the blockade of China's industrial goods may force the country into isolation. This situation could limit China's economic activity to serving only its own people or a few neighboring countries. The Silk Road, or as I call it, the Dragon Road, is essentially closed, both through the Zangezur corridor and strategic points in Afghanistan. The maneuvers carried out by America in Afghanistan have rendered this transit route nearly unusable for China. Additionally, we cannot overlook Britain's efforts to increase its influence in Iran. At this point, attention must be drawn to the stories frequently served by the media regarding the conflicts between Iran and Israel. These conflicts, believed to be influenced by the City of London, are notable for Iran's lack of major actions against Israel despite the assassination of Iranian leaders. This could represent one of the quieter aspects of a major global strategy. China's trade balance also reveals another interesting point. China's exports to the United States have increased by 144%, surpassing $184 billion, whereas imports from the United States only amount to approximately $60 billion. This significant imbalance is a subject of varied interpretations. China sells products to America such as entertainment and decorative items, electronic devices, and industrial machines. In return, America exports high-value agricultural products like soybeans, corn and cotton, meat products, chemical substances, and aviation equipment. According to data from the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, for 2023, America exported 37 million tons of food and agricultural products to China. These included 26 million tons of soybeans, 7 million tons of corn, and a total of 1 million tons of meat products. China meets a significant portion of its total soybean demand from the United States. However, the fact that this trade is conducted in dollars for both sides could be a source of further tension. The Federal Reserve, Fed, which maintains the strength of the dollar in global trade, has the ability to shape this trade by printing money when needed. The additional tariffs imposed by America on Chinese products harm China while simultaneously leading to a decrease in consumption. On the other hand, the counter-tariffs China applies to American products create a complex trade equation between the two sides. However, the fact that everything is conducted in dollars gives America a strategic advantage. The dollar, under the control of the Fed, serves as a guarantee for international trade while also reinforcing America's economic superiority. The tensions in the Pacific and the trade wars between the two major powers, the United States and China, are not merely economic struggles but also battles for strategic dominance. The U.S. policy of exporting high-value-added products to China, contrasted with China's production of box products, brings this equation to an intriguing point. However, the core issue behind this trade is the dominance of the dollar on a global scale. China is forced to pay higher prices for high-value-added products imported from the U.S., such as food items, meat, soybeans, corn, and energy resources, while the U.S. pays for Chinese products using dollars it prints itself. This provides a significant strategic advantage for the U.S. While China works tirelessly in its factories to produce goods, the U.S. simply continues this equation by printing new dollars. If the U.S. were to initiate a war against China and close the Pacific, it would become extremely difficult for China to export goods abroad or import essential needs such as food and energy. This situation could place China under immense economic and social pressure. Trump's start-over remark can be interpreted as a reflection of this strategy. The U.S. is attempting to gain global dominance by threatening China with hunger and isolation. Speaking in numbers, China's exports to America have increased by 144%, surpassing $185 billion. In contrast, America's imports from China have remained at around $60 billion. Although the total trade volume approaches $1 trillion, it is difficult to say that this dollar-based trade favors China. America may develop a new monetary policy to change this situation, potentially creating a new reserve currency, such as the blue dollar, to reset all debts. China's future, on the other hand, could be shaped by a strategy aimed at division. Independence movements in regions like Tibet and Xinjiang could become part of this global game, leading to China's internal fragmentation. In this process, it is possible to say that we are entering a start-over era.